So, Luiza, what is the history behind remote invigilation?
It's come about, Sam, because of the global pandemic. New Year's Eve 20, let me get my years right, 19, I was sat with my mum, 82, little Polish firecracker of 82, sat having a New Year's Eve meal in our Venetian masks, both looking foxy.
Very nice.
And nobody could have seen where we were going to be in 2020. So we got the first inklings of the lockdown. I think it was at the end of March.
Mm-hmm.
And all credit to the CII, they had to find some sort of system to allow candidates to still continue to get their professional qualifications. And what we ended up with was a remote invigilated system through an American company called PSI. And I've got absolutely no idea what PSI stands for. I'm sure it stands for something, but that's what led to the remote invigilated exam option, pretty much the global pandemic. Now, we are, almost a year after we first went into lockdown. And the system, when it was first introduced, was, oh goodness, did we have some fun and games. It's got a lot better, but we still have candidates that get some issues with it. But I've got to come back to introducing a new system is never going to be an easy thing, because you can't legislate for the candidates' proficiency with technology, what systems they've got at home, etc. So, as I say, all hats off to the CII for introducing it, giving us all a way to keep sitting our professional qualifications, because it couldn't have been easy. But that's the reason.
Okay, so how does the remote invigilation actually work?
Well, you start off, so you're at home. Thankfully I've got a home office. You've got to close all the doors, make sure you're not interrupted, which is always a giggle with me because I've got 3 cats.
Yeah.
And the minute anybody with animals will identify with this, the minute you've got a shut door, everybody wants to come in. Yeah, so I get little furry faces in the glass. But you've got to shut yourself off. And the first stage is you download the PSI browser to your computer system. And that browser will check your system for any other programs that you might have opened. Are you only looking at it on one screen because you're not actually allowed to look at it on 2 screens? And a real top tip I would get out there straight away to your listeners is make sure you've got 2 things to hand. The PSI help desk telephone number and your PII, I've even made up, the examining body there, your CII PIN number. Because if you have a problem with that browser, you're going to have to ring the help desk, and the first thing they're going to ask you for is your PIN number. So just a good thing to be prepared in advance. And once you've downloaded that browser to your own system and it's happy, you can then go on to the next stage, which is verifying your ID and your environment with and it's called your proctor. So you've got a little proctor that's going to be a little proctor. There might be a big proctor, you can't see them. So them verifying you are who you say you are. So from there, you go on to that process.
Okay, so the verification process. So what does that actually entail then?
Well, that is quite a bit of a giggle. So you've got a proctor that you don't see. What you have in the bottom right-hand side of your screen is a chat box. And the proctor will ask you to do a variety of, give you instructions through that chat box. And the first place they're going to start is asking you to verify your identity. Now, I used my passport, but you could use something like the card driver ID. It's got to have your photograph on it. Again, another tip, driver's ID, the writing on it's really small. So personally, I would have 2 forms of photo ID, just in case the proctor doesn't like one of them. So you've got to hold your ID up to your camera and take a picture of it. And then your proctor through your chat box will say, yes, I'm happy, or no, you need to do it again. From there, Sam, you need to video all around your working environment.
Mm-hmm.
So they can see that you've not got lots of post-it notes, you've not got your manual open. So you need to use your camera to video all round your exam environment, including, and this always makes me giggle, under your desk. And they will have a look at that video and check that your environment is absolutely right for sitting a professional qualification. Standards do vary. I'm a great Diet Coke drinker. Anybody that knows me, knows I drink a lot of Diet Coke, and I generally have a glass of it on my desk. Now, one proctor didn't like that at all, wanted that gone. Another one didn't even bat an eyelid. So I literally had a glass with Diet Coke in it. So nothing that I could stick anything to, or I could have any revision aids on, but they do vary. So that's verifying your ID and videoing your exam environment, which is where you go to next.
Okay, cool. So how does the actual exam completion process work then?
Well, that's actually very similar to what a lot of candidates will already be used to. You literally get a row of numbers of your questions at the bottom of your screen, and then you're pressing start the exam, going forward, and the questions are appearing with your answers. And as you are answering those questions, the little cursor on your numbers at the bottom, moves forward. So you can see at any point where you are in your 50 or 100 questions. You can do normal stuff like flag answers, you can go backwards, you can go forwards. It's pretty much in terms of, from that point, what most candidates will already be used to. In terms of calculators, you've got a choice. There is a built-in calculator to the system that you can use, or you can use your own. And when you were doing the ID and the checking, you would have had to have shown the calculator that you were going to use. There's also things like tax tables. If you want to access the tax tables, you can't have a paper version. You need to click on a PDF, and that brings it up, and then you shut it down again. So you've got a few different tools, and that's a little bit different. You're allowed scrap paper. And I always use loads of scrap paper. I'm a great drawer of buckets and grids and stuff like that. So you're absolutely allowed to use scrap paper. But again, part of the process is you've got to show the proctor. And that's a little bit different. But sitting the exam, actually answering your questions, that's pretty, close to an exam centre experience.
Great. So there are some great tips really, Luiza, because I think it's stressful enough having to sit an exam, let alone let it be remotely and then have to deal with something like this. So I think if you're prepared for this situation, then you're going to be more relaxed going into the exams.
100% agree. And I'm surprised that there isn't some sort of frequently asked questions and answers to help candidates. My first remote invigilated exam, because I did 3 of them last year because I wanted to see what the system was like, never having used it myself. Because one of the things BTS pride ourselves on is we walk in the same shoes as our candidates. And if you've not experienced it, we're going to go and do it. And I was amazed that there wasn't, well, there's a video that you can watch, but that really doesn't give you some of the top tips, like not having 2 screens open, like you're going to need a mirror behind you, to show your working environment from a different. I'm amazed that sort of stuff isn't actually out there on the CII website. Just amazes me. And people that are normally sitting this, they need that exam. It took me an hour to get into my R01 because I had browser issues. And that made me nervous, and I'm not sitting the exam because I need to pass it. I'm sitting the exam because I want to have a look at the system. I want to see what's good about it, what issues I had. Somebody that is sitting it because they need a pass, these hints and tips, I think, are massively valuable, because if you know it could go wrong and you need the PSI help desk number, you're going to be prepared. It took me an hour, as I say, to get into my first exam. And I was panicking, thinking, oh my goodness, are they going to let me in? They absolutely do. But before you've had a go and before you've had some issues, it's actually nice to hear about somebody else's experience. So really valuable, I think, to people, especially where they haven't used the system yet.